Welcome to Into the Woo, a wellness podcast hosted by Alice Hu. I'll be exploring the world of crystals, energy healing, spirit guides, and more to help you understand how they can unlock your potential. These concepts have helped me discover my purpose and my truth, and I can't wait to hear how they will inspire you. I'll show you how they can be accessible and powerful tools in your life.
You know, when you're scrolling on Facebook or Instagram and you see that one person you knew in high school or college, but has drastically changed and their life is completely different. It could be someone who is like really skinny and unathletic, and now they're like a fitness trainer or something else like that. Well, when I started Woo Woo Company, I definitely thought of that, of what people would think of me, because I was in marketing communications for my entire career, and now I was going to make a switch into wellness. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. It was, hey, I'm going to share about energy healing, crystals, and manifestations. So it really went into a different part of wellness. And I had a lot of fear, and I was nervous around sharing this new version of myself. And honestly, I think it is a part of myself that was always there, and it was just waiting to be unlocked, waiting to be discovered. And before I started Woo Woo Company, I had an e-commerce company here in the DC area, and I met a lot of female entrepreneurs, many people in the tech scene, startup scene. And so when I started sharing more about this new venture that I started, I actually had a lot of people message me privately, people that I knew in high school, college, old jobs, saying, hey, I'm really into this stuff too. I think it's great that you started this company. And honestly, that was really unexpected. I had really no expectations when I started the first event, and then last summer when I started to really increase programming to 6 to 8 events a month. I was like, well, I think this is interesting. Maybe other people will. Washington, D.C. has more of a serious vibe, and it's really not the first place you'd think of people being interested in everything that I share, but so many people would come out to events, and people from various parts of my life saying like, wow, this is really interesting. Keep on sharing what you're sharing. I'm learning a lot. And so that really allowed me to understand that, when you really show a side of you that you're scared, it's a big step in personal development. It's stepping into your truth, but it's also just a wonderful opportunity for others to see that within themselves as well. So I met Shelly Bell at an entrepreneurship startup event years ago. I can't even remember which event, but Shelly Bell is a visionary, a serial entrepreneur, an engineer. She has so many wonderful talents, and she's currently the founder of Black Girl Ventures. And I remember hearing her speak and being so inspired by what she shared, but also her story as well. She really was ahead of the game. Last year, we met up for a coffee, and I shared a little bit more about what I was doing, the types of events that I was hosting, and I discovered that Shelly was also really into this woo-woo stuff. She had not really spoken too much about it, at the events that I'd seen her, but she honestly really uses her intuition to guide her in everything that she does. She has a specific morning and evening rituals. She is deepening her spiritual practice. She shared with me that she oftentimes has dreams that really tell her about what's going to happen, that give her psychic insights. And so I was so excited to have the opportunity to talk to her about intuition, what it is, how it's helped her, how it's an important part of the manifestation process, co-creating what you want in this life, and how energy is crucial to everything, and how your vibe, how you are feeling, your state of being dictates what you create in your life. We also chat about relationships, the types of jobs and partnerships that we've called in based on our energy at a specific time. And honestly, we just had a lot of fun catching up and talking about our favorite modalities and tools in this space.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great. Would never pass up an opportunity to talk about intuition and talk about, being woo-woo. I don't get to talk about it often in business, to a certain extent. So it's like, yes, let me tell this part. And interestingly enough, so I've always been entrepreneurial, but I would say like this stint of entrepreneurship was all intuition, honestly. So I was engaged to a man who did not want me to start a business. He didn't think it was stable enough or the thing to do. He didn't get it. So ultimately, at first I didn't, because I was like, oh, like I'm gonna be a wife. I gotta, think about these things, blah blah blah. Went to work. I was working for a patent search firm, and the boss I had was a really great boss. But he called me in one day and he was like, hey, actually, you're amazing, but this is not for you. He laid me off. He gave me a really great package. And I went home. I was devastated. And I went home and called California Psychics because I was like, what is happening to my life? And
like the 1-800 numbers?
Yes. The 1-800 numbers for California Psychics, because I was like, what in the world is going on? And, over the course of my life, I've always had, so I grew up in church, and in church for me meant Pentecostal church, which is really woo-woo. It's under the guise of Christianity, but it's still really woo-woo because it's one of those places that it's the group of people who believe in laying hands and catching the Holy Spirit, and that there is this overtaking of you of spirit. And so I would say that even a lot of what I think about, believe now, came from me really feeling that as a kid. And so even at 15, I started to have dreams that would come true. And that was all throughout the course of my life. And I would get upset about it because I'd be like, why do I know these things if I can't do anything about them? So some of them, they weren't always happy. It may be things that people are dealing with, or emergencies, or things that are about to happen that were detrimental, and I didn't always celebrate that as a gift. But because of growing up in Pentecostal church, that was viewed as a gift. And it was, mapped back to some kind of Christian experiences. So I would say I was fortunate in the sense of early on really having that affirmed, that you having these dreams that then come to life is a prediction and is a prophecy. And that was affirmed in me very early, even though some of the other parts of Christianity have felt then and have felt way more oppressive. I would say just that part of the Pentecostal church really affirmed me knowing that there's something bigger, because I felt it. I saw it. I witnessed it. I was highly engaged in it. And it's this is all energy transference. So anyway, fast forward back to the psychic hotline. So I called the psychic hotline, and the woman, she tells me, when you find the thing that you want to do, the money will come, and you're not going to be with that guy. So within 2 months, my whole life flipped upside down. Broke up with that. Got disengaged. Broke up with that guy. And just started, I was like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know how it's going to work, but I'm not going back to work for anyone. I was never a good employee. Every job I've ever gotten into, I either rise to the next position and be like, I don't want to be here no more. Or I'm always trying to fix things and that people don't want to fix. So I'm just like, yeah, it's better for me to be an entrepreneur. So as I go into this journey, one of my first ideas was to build a teepee, like the Native American tent teepee, and put it in my living room, right? And so I'm like, going to build a teepee, put it in my living room, I'm going to rent it out. Everybody thought I was crazy. And in hindsight, I don't actually know why I was so sure that that idea would work. Like I didn't have any real evidence that it would. I just knew it looked like a cool thing to do. I had an empty living room, and I was a part of this festival that we were bringing to town, and our hotel block closed early. So I'm like, maybe I can get some people to stay in it. And it didn't work out that way, but I stayed on it. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. So come to find out, Airbnb has a TP option. And from there, exactly. So I was able to put it up on Airbnb, and it worked. And people wanted to come and stay with us. And then I quickly found out that I didn't want people to come and stay with us. So after I let one woman stay, I was like, this is not what I really want to be doing. But determined not to go back and work for anybody else, I started just asking myself, what skills do I have? And I knew how to print t-shirts. And so I was like, let's do that. So I went into that, finally landed on a t-shirt design that worked. My mom invested some money. I took my tax money and bought my own machines. And now I started with a t-shirt line called Made by a Black Woman. And I ran with it and did that, started printing for other people and just started getting partnerships and growing my revenue and built the company that way. So by the time I landed on launching Black Girl Ventures, it was because the news had come out that women are not getting access to capital. But like much like the rest of the journey, I'm like, oh, women are not getting access to capital. Let's just do something about it. Why don't we just all get together, put some money up and give it away? And so I ran the whole thing like a poetry slam. So it's a mix of like Shark Tank and Kickstarter. So like women are pitching live, but then the audience is actually donating to the pitch that they favor. And that's the vote for who wins the competition. So it really was not a thought. You know, like I knew how to bring people together because I had been doing performance poetry and been in the art community heavy, doing community building and organizing and bringing people together for different reasons. I launched a women's writing group. I hosted like LGBT open mic and writing experiences. And so it was just already a part of my DNA, this whole like bring people together piece. So I really didn't think a whole lot about it. Like, again, in my mind, this is going to work. You know, like it was just,
The belief.
It was the belief. It was all intuitive. You know, and I've done some of the things like the vision boards and like, that the vision board piece doesn't really work for me. So I'm a little bit cynical about them. But I'll say, I am all about writing things out. So I do think, even I found a notebook as we were taking my son to college yesterday, and look back at the things that I'd written, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of these things happened.
I have tons of notebooks like that too. And even with the start of Woo Woo Company, I had written years and years ago that I wanted to start a wellness business, and I'd forgotten it. It was like deeply seated in my subconscious. I forgot it. And then after I started Woo Woo Company, I went back and looked at this notebook, and I was like, wow, I wrote this down 3 years ago.
What I learned recently about the act of writing it down, is that like connecting your head to your hand almost. It's like a kinesthetic connection. And then the energy in which you are writing is what is read by by the spirit world. Like the energy in which you are speaking about things, the energy in which you are writing. And that's why, like, you know, when you read things about like laws of attraction and that kind of thing, and it's talking about like, even if you focus on something that you feel like is positive, but you're saying it in a negative energy, like you really don't believe it deep down, that you'll kind of keep getting the things the negative result. And it's all because of the way that you sound, feel, what kind of energy you're anchored in when you're actually writing these things out and saying them. So that's why I'm also kind of I'm careful about my affirmations, because a lot of times we're writing affirmations out of fear. If you think you're beautiful, you don't necessarily need to write down "I am beautiful" or say out loud "I am beautiful," because you already think you're beautiful. So I think, we have that. For me, it's like, ask yourself, am I doing this? Why am I saying these things? Why am I writing these things down? Why am I putting these things out? Do I really believe in them? And like, what needs to be moved? Who am I being? Or who do I need to become? Or who do I want to become, actually, in order to move to the next place in my journey?
Yeah, I think that's why people get frustrated with manifestation and with law of attraction and thinking positively, because a lot at the superficial level at first glance are just saying, like, write what you want down. And if you if you say it like positively, then it'll work. I think that's just one part of the equation. Like you said, there has to be the intention behind it. Do you believe it? It is always belief. If you believe that you will succeed, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You will find ways to make that thing happen. But if you're operating out of scarcity, out of fear of like, oh, I need to find a job because you're scared, you might find a job, but that job isn't going to be good. And that's definitely happened to me.
100%. I mean, even with this guy that was my fiance, who we did plan and have a child together. So we have a 5-year-old. Even when I think about how I brought him into my life, in terms of like, right before I met him, it's funny, I was thinking about this recently. I was thinking about how, like, I could have been married if I wanted to, but I didn't want to. Like, when I think about it, like, really deep down, I was not thinking about getting married until I was. And then when I started thinking about getting married, I started doing all these things that, like, friends had told me, who are also woo-woo friends, about, like, calling in the person that you want. And so I would do things like, making sure your room is clean, because if somebody came over right now, you would want them to, be able to come in. Like, I even did some things like, sitting down with 2 plates at dinner. I didn't put food on another plate, but like sitting down with 2 plates at dinner, like you could do feng shui things, like make sure you have, if you have a night table on the side of your bed, like have night tables on both sides, like, like doing all these things to prepare space for another person.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. I did all of that, and like the things that I did to call him in are the very reasons why we broke up. Because I did it based off of what I thought I might want, or based off of like, this is preparing space for someone else. But I didn't do it consciously preparing space for the person that I really wanted, or the best person for me to commune with. So and I think I place that akin to the vision boards, kind of, where it's like, I want this car. And so you put up a visual of a car, and without any consciousness around, like, well, what does that actually mean? You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this Tesla, but like, and then what does that mean though? Like, and then what? And that's cool. It's material, but, and then it's like, well, what's the maintenance behind that? Worth that ongoing? What kind of sacrifices would you may have to make for it? So, ultimately, doing all of those domestic things created this reality as if I was going to be that domestic person forever, and that's just not who I am. Like, I would rather hire a maid so that we could spend our time being together or traveling than I get like some type of burst of energy from cleaning up, like, so. But those are things I had to come to realize about myself. I would say when it comes to business, I was fortunate enough to lean into all that I am with this business and with the business that I've created, and just listening to myself. And I told myself, maybe maybe 10 years ago now, as I was transitioning from like Christianity hardcore to like a bigger reality of the universe that's available, I said to myself, okay, you know how people say like God the Father, right? Or, I'm like, okay, well, if God was my real father, what would I be doing?
Bold things.
Yes.
Bold. I've never had someone ask me that, but I would not be able to fail.
That's right. You wouldn't even think about it because you'd be able to just call your father. You know what I mean? Like, if you would just literally call your father. Like, okay, let me call my daddy because he gonna know what to do, right? Or let me call my daddy because he gonna have the money for it. Or let me call my daddy because my father because he's gonna show up, right? And I started saying like, so every day I'm gonna just follow my gut, no matter what. I'm just go with it. Whether it feels crazy, doesn't feel crazy, looks crazy, doesn't look like I don't even care because I'm just gonna go for it. And that has led me to every person I've met. That has led me to every experience I've walked into. That's led me to the relationships I had after. And that's constantly how I'm moving.
I think it's very different from, the way that most of us are taught to operate, and honestly, how the world operates. There's a set of rules that we have to follow, and we are taught to ignore our feelings. That to be emotional is a bad thing. But what I teach in my workshops and with the monthly membership is that energy is everything. If you are creating and doing because you are joyful, you're tapping into your creativity, it makes such a difference. And it's something that I've learned to do, in the last like year and a half. And it's really allowed a flow to come into my life. And I don't do anything that I don't enjoy doing. Aside from, there's always like admin things for work and whatnot. Those are like unavoidable until you can outsource that out. But really, I think every day I'm like, what's going to bring me joy? And if something becomes too heavy, I ask myself, why does this feel heavy? How do we make it more fun?
Yeah. I'm working on that holistically. I would say that I feel like I'm there when it comes to the work I do. I'm not there when it comes to my body yet. So I would say like when it comes to like I'm doing more of that when it comes to like I want my career to be fun. Like I want the work that I do to be fun and impactful. I want the work I do to be completely supported, impactful, and fun. And it's funny because like I can do that when it like I feel so much. It's so much easier for me to do when it's things that's outside of me. And when it comes to like, well, what do you want? I'm still working through what do I want outside of being attached to my career and in my business. Yeah, I'm still working on those things because they have become such a part of my life that it doesn't even feel like work. It's just such a regular day. Like wake up, talk to my team or talk to some people in the Black Girl Ventures community. I'm taking a week off next week for the first time in a while.
That's great. You deserve it. I think what this means is that you've gotten to a very comfortable place in the business. I mean, you've worked really hard for it, and now you're entering a new growth phase to really focus on yourself. And what does Shelly need?
Yeah, 100%. I think, so I've just recently moved into, a friend of mine who is, you've done some things with, has been on, I think maybe on here, Shoshana French. I took her Mastering Intuition course, and I worked with her for about 9 months on understanding how to use my intuition. And one of the things that's so great about working with her was in church, I was taught to like follow rules that would create spiritual feelings, but I was not taught a lot of like tools that would allow me to make decisions. So the like, give it to God and you'll figure it out. Like at some point, what I started to realize is like, oh, I can know more. And so if I can know more, why don't I just try and know more, right? And like not be afraid of knowing more. And I think there's some practices that I've run into prior to now that make you kind of scared of knowing more. Like if you know more, something's going to happen, and I'm like, I'm over that. And so I'm moving into a more structured spiritual practice and moving into studying Ifa, which is a African spirituality. And really like learning about orishas and different structures around prayers and offerings and a commitment to knowing and growing as much as I can.
So would you say that it's almost like being more intentional with your daily spiritual practice and giving yourself more tools, more insights to strengthen it?
100%. And it is, and it's more scientific, which is why I think I feel so drawn to it. So it's woo woo and science, and that's like, what else can I ask for?
I mean, you love systems.
I do. I'm such a systems person. You know what? I'm such a systems person, but I'm also so rebellious. So it's like I love to develop systems that create repeatable processes, but I don't like rules. So like because I feel like inside of a system, multiple things can happen, but rules feel so absolute that I'm usually the one that bucks the rules. And I used to stay away from certain practices because I'm like, oh, that's too many rules. But what I'm coming to understand is that there is a freedom in the system that can bring you joy, a more fulfilled spiritual life, and understanding of who you are and what you're here to do. Audre Lorde has a quote that says, I am who I am, doing what I came to do. And I love that so much. Because I feel like that. With Black Girl Ventures, I can be all that I am. If I want to help people, if I want to talk to people, if I want to share with people, if people want to share with me, it is just, it's a really awesome, I mean, we're doing some concrete business things, but I think like the energy of it, the space that we've been able to create for women and the feedback we get on creating that space really feels like everything that I would want to be doing in the world. Sometimes it's hard to explain to funders, so I spent a lot of time in life feeling misunderstood because I was having these dreams and, outside of like church, nobody really understood what that meant. Or, all the time that I did, when I was moving through all of these experiences, there was people at every level like, what? Like yes. When I was, building the teepee, they're like, you gonna do what? And I'm like, I'm gonna start launch this print company. They're like, what? Like nobody gets it. Not nobody. But I felt very misunderstood for the majority of my life. And I've come to find
you're a visionary. That's why.
Yeah.
You hold the vision when people, they don't have the foresight, they don't have the understanding, but you have the confidence to pave the way forward.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned is that you have to find your tribe. You find your spiritual family, the people who do understand you. And you rock with them. And you kind of let go of everything else.
Yeah, it's definitely something, that I've had to learn. I think that when you do step into this space, and I know that you stepped into this space earlier than I did because you had dreams and it was accepted by in your community and in your religion. So in some ways, it was easier, but I understand some ways difficult as well. But when I was doing this a couple years ago, just starting out, I realized that I had to release people in my life and expectations on certain situations. And more recently, the last few months, I have found myself going back to relationships and situations that leave me feeling not enough. And that was very much so how I felt in the corporate world. And I just realized, I was like, wow, I see this pattern in my personal life, and nothing in your personal life is limited to it. It will flow into your business life as well. And so when I made that realization, I was like, you know what? I don't need to be in these relationships that are more of a force rather than a flow. And I need to surrender and let these things go. And it's hard to, acknowledge that you want to be liked, and also realize that it doesn't matter if not everybody likes you, because it's obviously not possible, but you always have that feeling, like, at least I do, that I want to be well liked. But that doesn't happen. And once you release that and you just really connect with the relationships and whatever it may be that really light you up, that's when you found your tribe. And you don't need to feel like you're left out. You don't need to, continue that story for yourself. And I know I've been working on that. It's not easy.
No, it's not. And I think, what's so interesting about what you said about, the well-liked part is oftentimes we have to ask ourselves, by who? Because we neglect, I think, as sometimes the people who are right around us. Because there's certain people in our lives, maybe it could be from, not necessarily saying you, but just in general, it could be from childhood. It could be from, along your journey. There was somebody who caused this reaction internally. And that's not to say you got to go back and address this person, but it's just a matter of becoming aware that, like, I'm saying nobody understands me, but the reality is so many people understand me. And there's like two people that I really wanted to understand me who don't, and that has been affecting me, right? So it's like, who do I want to hear me, understand me, follow me, whatever? It's as a poet and doing performance poetry in the community, it would be like you have some poets who are poets, and then you have some poets who are people poets. And all that means is, like, you have some poets who the poets are like, oh my God, you're amazing. Like other poets like you, or who are at advanced levels, are so appreciative of everything you're doing. And then you have poets where, like, the people like you, and you can amass a large following and engagement with people because so many people love the way you present. But you may have the poets who are like, oh, that's okay, you're all right. and for whatever reason, you can have 100 people on your right hand who are like, you're amazing. Oh my God, can you come speak for us? And it'll be those three poets you want to be appreciated by on the left. And you're like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't ask for that amount of money. Oh, I probably shouldn't, do a thing, put this forward, act this way. Because the people who you want to appreciate you don't.
And that is such a good analogy. I think also just these things that come up are opportunities for you to shift your mindset. Are you going to be in a lack mentality or in abundance? Are you always going to see, that negative side, but not the positive side? And so when you see something like come up in your life, whatever it may be, awareness, and then you have the choice. You have the choice to say, you know what? I don't need to be well liked, or, those people don't like me, and that's fine. It's not your job to reach the people that don't want to be reached. There are so many more people that want to hear what you have to say, want to be your friend, want you to mentor them. And that number is so much larger than the ones who aren't a fan of you.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes not even if somebody's not a fan of you. It's just literally that, like, the opportunity, their capacity to be fans of anyone, or their capacity to be fans of you is limited. And so I've learned to just, like, reframe. So, one example is I was going to therapy before. And when I moved into my own apartment as right out of college, or actually in the middle of college, my dad did not want me to take my bed from home. And I was so sad. And I held that for like a long time. Like, oh, he didn't even want me to take my bed. He doesn't care. And I mean, I grew up with my dad in the same house. Like, and I'm only saying it to say, I really had no evidence of distance that my dad didn't care, right? So
Yeah.
like, this is what I, was saying to myself, oh, he's so this, he's so that. And I was going to this counselor, and she said to me, well, what if he didn't want you to take your bed because he didn't want to realize that you were gone? And I'm like, whatever, that's stupid. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like that's not the reason, right? So she was like, well, why don't you ask him? And I'm like, I have asked him and he has no answers. He's just like, I don't even remember. Like he has no answers that make me feel better. And she's like, so if you can choose to believe a truth, then why not choose to believe the most positive one? Because the reality is you don't have any answers. There's nothing concrete that can prove your theory. So in that case, you're choosing to believe the most negative thing you can think versus choosing to believe the most positive thing you can think.
Yes, and that can be for small things to big things. You have the ability to create your own reality, and that starts with choices. Choices like that you don't have the answers to, that kind of seem silly, but you're like, but do I want to believe this or do I want to believe that?
Right. And there's really no right or wrong. I think when you start to there's really no right or wrong. It's only what supports your journey moving forward. And so when we look at things that we thought had a right or wrong, like statistics that say like men could meet like 20% of the requirements and they complete it and they will go after the job. But women would feel like they have to meet 99% of the requirements or they can't apply. It is the idea that you could just move forward into confidence. And of course, like society reinforced some of that. Your relationships with people reinforces some of that, but I think when you become conscious of it, you then become responsible for it.
Yes. And I wanted to go back to chat a little bit more on intuition and how you define intuition.
I mean, I define intuition as a tool that everybody has. It's at first it was a gut feeling because I think that was an easy way for me to describe it and feel sane. Was that like, oh, this is just a gut feeling. Oh, I just got this like umption, this like, oh, I just have this feeling. Oh, it would be that kind of thing. And then eventually it became more of a voice and it became more of an understanding from another place in my consciousness. And it became less of like a gut reaction with no real context. And it became like such a clear voice. And not a literal voice, but like words coming to mind as guidance. So I don't know that there's like a really clear way to define it that fits into any kind of box. I think for me it has been a gut feeling and it has been a like listening to my own spirit or listening to my spirit.
Yeah. And, it is very much so intangible, and it's how your body feels. It's the voice inside your head. It's that gut reaction. It's so many different things. And I ask because there will be people listening and they'll be like, oh, well, I don't know. What is my intuition?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Have I been using it? And, after you talked about the dreams, I remember we had that conversation, the dreams that you've had, and have you spent, time to really strengthen that part of your intuition and psychic connections? I know that a popular thing to do, I do it myself, is before you go to sleep, if you have a question, to ask like your higher self, to ask your spirit guides, so that you can get the answer in your waking hours. Like, have you worked on developing your dream intuition and the psychic abilities?
That's such a good question. To a certain extent, yes. So I have done the like ask a question before I go to sleep thing. I don't do it consistently. So I think that's such a good question because I could do it more consistently. I should do it, but I don't do it more because I think right now I feel like I'm in a transition place where like I'm feeling a lot of and seeing and hearing a lot more when I'm awake. So one of my cousins is a medium and she usually does my like a reading for me every year, and she's like maybe a year or so ago now, she was like. I was talking about narcolepsy because I was diagnosed with narcolepsy in like 2007. And then this is the medical explanation for the dreams. So the medical explanation is it's lucid dreaming because you have narcolepsy, because your body's not falling to the proper levels of REM sleep, and these things. And so I'm like, okay, here's the medical explanation for why my body's doing what it's doing. And so I had this reading years later, and my cousin, she says, well, when you go ahead and commit to the work that you're supposed to be doing, your body won't feel like it has to put you to sleep to do it. So I would say like right now, I feel like I'm in an in-between place where like some weeks I'm on and I'm like doing all the things I'm supposed to do and like, doing all of my practices and breath work and and meditating and all the things, and I'm sleeping the best, and I'm not having as many dreams because I'm hearing all day. And then there's some weeks where I just don't follow. I just don't follow
That's
not the
life.
Yeah, I'm just not structured, and I'm sleeping terrible, and then everything's coming through my dreams. So it's a bit of a dance for me right now, and I think trying to get out of the thought that like, oh no, but this is actually medical. It's hard because I didn't even think about this, but this is coming up now. I'm talking to you. There's a little bit of fear there around one, realizing that like maybe like I could have fixed this all along. And that I did not do enough for my spirit to fix it, right? Or not fix it, but to have better sleep or better quality of sleep and awakeness. There's also some fear around like, I don't know, I'm gonna have to unpack that, because what that brings up for me is doubting my own psychic abilities, and doubting my transition into how much I can know or how much I do know, and trusting myself and trusting my intuition. And bigger than trusting my intuition, moving into African spirituality is like really trusting that how big this realm is, like how much I actually have access to without being afraid of it.
I just got chills.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting what you said about how you don't need to dream when you sleep, because now your intuition, your insights, your psychic ability is coming through during the daytime. And I think as you dive in more into African spirituality and that new system, it's going to open up so much more. And wow, I've caught you at such a great time. Truly big things are ahead for you that are going to be life-changing, big things moving within you.
I received that.
I mean,
I let that shower me. I 100% believe that.
There might be the day that I come to you and I'm like, Shelly, I need a reading. And you're like, I'm ready. Combining the business and combining the spirit world. This is what I have for you. That'll be such a day.
Wow. I feel that. And it's so funny you should say that, because it is in my destiny that I am a spiritual practitioner. And I think that I have avoided it in so many ways. I mean, I have and I haven't, right? Because I know that when I'm doing the work that I'm doing with Black Girl Ventures, especially when I'm coaching, that even the people I'm working with understand and can feel it. So, but I think for me, I'm also just like, I don't want people to feel like I'm weird.
I get it. I get it. I made a really big shift a couple months ago. I had Woo Woo Company, but I also had, the Intuitive Consulting. Those are two different websites, two different brands. And I had a friend, he was like, these things are the same. Why don't you combine it? Less platforms, less things to update. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like they're so separate. He's like, they're not separate. They're really very much so the same. There's room for everything on Woo Woo Company. And then I realized that I'm still a little bit afraid and fearful of bringing in that business aspect into Woo Woo Company. I mean, with that name, you know what this company is about, what I do, and to link it so closely with, business and marketing and consulting, I was afraid. I was like, oh, like this is going to be out there. It's going to be weird. But then I realized, per earlier thoughts on what you're able to choose, what reality you want to create yourself. And I'm like, you know what? I only care about the people who want to hear what I have to share and say, not for the ones that are going to be like, this is weird. I want the ones who are curious and the ones that are like, I want to learn more. There's something that you're sharing that is really speaking to me. And so now they are one thing.
Yeah. And that's congratulations
Oh,
on that,
thank you.
because that's actually a bigger step than you may have even given yourself credit for, because trying to, like, ultimately they're not going to come to you if they don't want it. If they don't want it, if you're here, you're curious. If you're listening, you're either in it or you're curious. As much as that person may say, oh no, I'm just over here, this garden. I don't really like flowers.
But I'm in
What?
this garden all the time.
Yeah, like, no, you like things that grow, and so it's like, again, going back to people and their capacity. And it's like, you may not be able to articulate who you are right now. You may not be able to articulate why you're attached to this thing that I'm growing. But you're here for a reason, and I'm not beholden to your reason. You are.
And as long as you let your light shine, you share your gift with the world, the universe will give back to you tenfold. And that's what I've learned. And, I'm working with a coach and a mentor these last few months. And I asked her, I was like, how am I going to get more people to know what I'm doing? I know what I'm doing is important and there's a lot of value in it. And I'm explaining these concepts about, woo-woo, spirituality, holistic health in a way that's very grounded and very practical. And that, people aren't weirded out by, to be frank, for lack of a better description. They're just like, I'm curious. I've never seen it presented in this way. It's very relatable. And I was like, how do I get more people? And she's like, don't worry about that. It'll come. I'm impatient as well. And so she's like, just focus on doing the work. Focus on letting your light shine and doing what you love to do. And you're doing everything right now. Just be patient.
And I think you. Oh wait, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So 2 days ago, one of my reels got featured on Instagram. I had gone on to the TikTok platform because, things go viral so quickly there. There are people there with millions of followers, but like 10,000, 5,000 followers on Instagram. And I was posting to the reels like, a week and a half ago. And I was like, none of these are like going viral. None of these are becoming popular. Oh, well, whatever. Here are 4. Let's see what happens. 2 days ago, I got this just alert that says your reel has been featured. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And in the last 2 days, it's been 1.8 million views.
Wow. I have a button. I'm going to hit my hype button for you.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
This is my favorite button. One of the women in our community brought it for me, and I'm always now on all of my Zoom calls with it. That is amazing. That's so great. Like, look at that. I think another thing that you have going too is like, you're so modern. Like, I think a lot of the spiritual woo-woo things are like ancient looking websites that nobody's updating, and you're like, what the heck? Like, why couldn't this be better? Or you have your people who are so like influencer focused that you don't know if they're actually anchored or have any actual real intuition. So it also doesn't feel as genuine. I think that like your energy is felt through the way you put out what you put out and the decisions that you make. You feel very intentional about the way you decide to engage. So I think like, yeah.
I've been working on that even more the last few months, like really thinking about the impact that I want to make in the world. I want to make this accessible because, these things like, TV shows, mainstream culture really makes fun of crystals, tarot cards, like witches, spirits. But I'm like, this is a fun way to get to know yourself. These are just tools. I mean, you can sit quietly in the forest and all this stuff will come, but looking at astrology, looking at human design, looking at all these different things, it makes it more fun and more playful. And you pick what you like and you leave what doesn't serve you behind.
It's funny what that you just said. What came to me when you said you could be sitting in the forest and all these things will come, is that you would be whoever you are no matter where you were. Like, you'd be doing this inside of a company. If you were working for a company, you would be doing it, in another part of the world. If you were in another part of the world, you would be like, you are who you are, and your zone of genius is your zone of genius. And when you find it, or when you've been able to operate it in it for so long, like you're now just reaping the benefits of the preparation that you did all these years. One of my teachers says, preparation determines results. And a lot of times we think the actions that we're taking after we prepare are determining results. But it's like, no, like the preparation is actually what determines the results.
I have told my friends that I feel like I've been preparing for this moment my entire life and my entire professional career. All the different things that I've learned in marketing and business, e-commerce, branding, translating between cultures. And, ultimately this is a translation. I'm translating the spiritual into just more modern terms. And, it looks friendly. The website, the Instagram, it's easily understood. It's presenting the unfamiliar in a familiar way.
Yeah. And I think it works. So, hey, I think it's awesome.
It's been fun. And I wanted to ask you, what rituals do you have every single day to really set you up for success, to make sure that you are being intentional, and any new ones that have come up for you?
I do breath work as many mornings as I can. So if I don't do it every morning, I do it as many mornings as I can. And breath work is different from just like meditation and breathing because it's an active meditation. And there's a certain kind of breath that you're doing. A certain kind of rhythm to the breath that you're taking in. That has been amazing. So every morning, I light candles every morning. I light incense every morning. I sit at my altar every morning. To do the breath work, you have to lay down. So I lay down and I found one that is 7 minutes long. So I lay down and I do the breath work meditation because it's 7 minutes, like totally works for me and it's perfect. So I do that. Depending on what I feel I need to do, I might pull some tarot cards. My nutrition coach prescribed me dancing for 10 minutes a day. I have not yet gotten that down daily, but I'm close. But some of if it comes to like me speaking, then I have to take space. So like I have to have moments before I speak where like I'm just having silence, or I'm just sitting, or maybe I am dancing or moving, or just taking a moment to myself where I'm not engaged with anyone before I speak is important for me. I've lately, speaking of introducing new things, repetitive tasks have become sort of cathartic and like somewhat therapeutic. So like that's not something I would normally say, because I'm always like doing things new. Let me do this new thing, do this, do that. But like, there's these types of like hair that you get, like it's called faux locks, but like you basically braid a little bit of braid hair into your hair and then you wrap it. And just the wrapping the hair, like wrapping strands of my hair has just been therapeutic. Like I didn't know that that would be a thing. I just watched a YouTube video. I was like, I'm going to try it. But yeah, it's actually been therapeutic. Coloring, dancing or mimicking like the beating of drums, like to certain songs, has been something that I've been doing. It actually, like the physical piece, it gets me moving, it gets energy flowing, and I can kind of lose myself in it a little bit. Yeah, those are the few of the things, and I'm really concentrating a lot on, because we've been quarantined, right? So now I'm like creating the space that I want to look at. So it's like, let me shift these colors. Let's shift the way this smells. Let's move things over here. Let's get more colorful rugs. And I wasn't doing that before because I was traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now your home is going to be nice and cozy. It's like where you play, where you work, well, where you rest. It's everything now.
For sure. I like it so much more.
I think, obviously I wish I could travel, but, I've been taking it as an opportunity to go inward and to create and to build a strong foundation, so that when we are able to travel more freely, then I'm going to be gone for a while, and I'm going to feel more secure, more stable in what I do. And so now is the time to put in work. That's what I view it for myself.
Yeah, I think so. I like that. And I'm learning to appreciate local more, like, well, what are there, where's the water locally? Where is the trail locally? Where is so I'm also thinking of those things. And I don't know, this just causes to think a lot about life and the way that life works and what a way of life means. I think that is what being quarantined has really, really pushed me to see, like, what do I want my way of life to be? And that includes those rituals, that includes those daily habits, the food. What kind of culture am I creating in my household and for me and for my children? And then what will that produce? Is that what I want to produce? And if not, then what does that look like? Because this is a way of life. Like, following your intuition, that is a way of living.
Yes, it absolutely is. And for those who are, taking this time to go inward and to be more intentional, it's going to be such a big, profound shift. I know that I felt it for myself. Like I'm cooking a lot healthier. I am being very mindful about the environment. I'm recycling better. I'm doing research. I'm like, well, I don't need to buy almond milk anymore. I have some extra time. Why don't I try making my own almond milk? And I was like, oh, this is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And yeah, I'm looking locally of like, for the first time, I think ever, I was on Airbnb and I was Googling, like, where do I go vacation in this area? Like in this immediate area. I don't know, because usually I fly. I'll go to California, I go overseas, I go to like somewhere else, but I'm like, what do I do here in my own backyard? And what I've discovered, there are many beautiful places in the DMV.
Oh yeah. There's some really beautiful places. And even like, a couple hours out, right? A couple hours out, you're in Delaware. You could find some really, really awesome beaches or, things. Like, you could go in multiple directions. You could go, see the, some like nice little waterfalls or rivers, like Great Falls. So I think like it's interesting. I agree with you. Just like, what can I do outside? Because I think that's the other thing. It's like, I mean, if we're not baking, like literally outside on fire because it's so hot. And then, when the sun goes down a little bit, can I go over to the waterfront? Can I take a water taxi? What does that look like to do some things locally?
Yeah, I went to West Virginia a couple weeks ago. I did some beautiful hikes up to the top of mountains. It was beautiful. I'd never done that. I just was like, whatever. But it was just so beautiful. And I was like, wow, this is only a few hours away. I would have never known, or I would have never looked, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you have a favorite quote or a mantra that you always refer back to time and time again?
I have both. Well, my mantra is resist the urge to be average. And the quote that I love is from Alicia Wilson. She's currently the VP of Economic Development at Johns Hopkins University and Johns Hopkins Health Center System. And I interviewed her, and she said, "Be all that you are as soon as possible." And I love that so much. Like, be all that you are as soon as possible. And I'm telling my children that, and people I meet that, because, I wish I would have had someone telling me that sooner in life and then supporting that journey. But either way, I feel like I found it at the right time, the time that made sense for who I am and where I'm going. This idea of be all that you are as soon as possible.
That hype button was so unexpected, but I loved it. I kind of want to get my own. There were so many gems in that conversation. Something that I've realized as I speak to more people, whether they attend my virtual events or message me over Instagram, is, when you get into the space, spirituality, learning about these various tools and modalities, it can feel very isolating. You might be the only one that's really curious about these things. And it's hard to do this alone. You don't need to. And this is why I created the company. This is why I created the monthly membership, so that we're able to support one another in this journey. And the more you are able to share your authentic self, first with yourself and then with others, you allow your light to shine and you become electric, you become magnetic. And as you know, if you've taken my classes on manifestation, listening to this episode, that energy, that intention is truly the key to manifestation, creating that life that is magical and a life worth living. Don't forget to check out the workbook. It's in the show notes. It's all about trusting your intuition. It includes a couple different practices that have worked for me that you can try out to start strengthening this skill and this muscle. So if you've been following me on Instagram, I've been sharing a lot about my new program, Discover Your Truth and Purpose. It's something I wish I had at the start of my spiritual journey, especially as I was making a change, a transition from what my life used to be to my current life now, really creating a new reality for myself. It contains everything that I've learned in the past few years, especially this past year, what's worked for me, the practices, the rituals, the tools that have helped me to really discover my truth and step into my power by sharing my truth with others. I hope you'll join me, and if you have any questions, please find me over Instagram, or you can message me over the website. I'll include those in the show notes as well. I can't wait to guide you in this journey. If you loved this episode, if you love the podcast, please give it a 5-star rating on the Apple iTunes podcast app and share this episode with a friend. Next month, I'm going to choose a review at random
to gift a custom meditation. So please go to the app and give it a 5-star rating to be included.